Welcome everyone here to the Smash Evening Show right here on Smash FM here on a lockdown Tuesday here in Melbourne. Of course, let's go and continue our music theme in particular on this lockdown edition, and of course speak to another artist that's just released her new EP. Of course, the EP is called Therapy. She joins us, and of course her name's Ashton Turner. She joins us right now. Thanks, Ashton, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Pretty interesting times at the moment here in Melbourne in particular, as everyone would know. But I guess on the good side, you've released your new EP last week. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, so it felt like a really weird time to be releasing music, actually. I wrote this music between 1 and 2 years ago, and you know, the world's obviously a very different place now. But at the same time, this is an EP that is primarily about mental health. And I think that given the state of Victoria and the state of the world right now, it's actually something that it's not so bad to be spotlighting, even though the world is very different. So so this show is about my experience with mental health and kind of how I've processed that through music.
The title of the EP, as you mentioned, is quite coincidence. Of course, with what's been happening, and especially we've just gone into stage 4 of our lockdowns, and obviously people being at home and trying to figure out what they want to do at home. But for you, you actually wrote this song a couple of years ago, and you mentioned about battling mental health and all that sort of things. What convinced you to release it last week?
I had it in the can and I'd been waiting for the right time, and you know, I wanted to do a big launch party and you know, have a full band at a big venue, and I wanted to, you know, really celebrate this, and I kept waiting and it just didn't look like there was ever going to be a time anytime soon. So I thought, well, better now than never. It may as well go out into the world, and I'm still very proud of it, and I'm still happy that we got to release it, even if maybe we don't get to have a launch party anytime soon.
Of course, now it's been pretty much a week from today since you released it. How's the reactions been like since you released the EP?
It's been so overwhelming and so lovely, the way that people have come out in and supported the EP. It's not particularly commercial music. My music is quite theatrical, and I think that it's also extremely personal, and that can be a little bit alienating for some people. But people have come out and messaged me and shared the music around, and it's been just so heartwarming. It's a cause near and dear to my heart, so it's so nice to see people speaking openly about this kind of thing and sharing kind of my version of speaking openly about it. So it's been a beautiful experience, a fantastic week.
I actually had to listen to your music when you sent it through to us last week about it, and it's really touching for the fact that, you know, I know a lot of people out there at the moment are stuck at home, obviously with what's been going on, obviously no work at the moment to go to and all that sort of things. And I guess it's all about the mental side of things at the moment, especially what's been happening. I guess for you, you mentioned that you've gone through it yourself. Tell us, I guess you don't have to go through all of it. You don't have to go deep into it, but what sort of things did you sort of find when you went into, I guess, a similar situation with regards to your mental health and the reason behind this song?
Yeah, I'm really happy to talk about it. You know, if I'm going to release music about it, it's going to be something I'm open about, and I'm more than happy to do that. So my particular demon is depression, and I started suffering quite badly with that about 2.5 years ago. And so that, you know, that process of me trying to improve my state of mind has, it's been a long, complicated one, and it's involved, you know, going to a psychologist, it's involved medication, it's involved difficult conversations with people that I love. And it's also involved, for me, a really big change in the way that I make my music. And it felt like a really good opportunity for me to express something that had been a profound experience in my life and actually share it openly, because I know that for some it is still stigmatized. And what really struck me as well, when I was first seeing a psychologist, I was remembering all those times that musicians and other creatives around me had said, like, you know, such and such is my therapy for me, you know, singing is therapy for me, or painting is therapy for me, or whatever it is. And I had always wondered if that was really true, and if it could have the same effects. And so that was kind of the question that I had when I set out to writing this project. It was originally a cabaret, and I still don't really have the answer. I think that in some ways, yes, it can really be therapeutic for us, and it certainly has been for me. But there are also elements of it that we can only really achieve in a more traditional setting. So I suppose it's just a very personal thing. But if I can inspire people to ask that question to themselves, then maybe that's not such a bad thing.
And has that now all improved since then?
It's a journey, and it's not like a cold, you know, something you just get over. But you know, I'm continuing to act in my own best interests, and I encourage everyone else to do the same, especially at the moment.
Now, you mentioned that you wanted to hopefully have at least some launch party or something like that for this new EP. Obviously, it's not going to happen in the next 6 weeks or so while we're all in lockdown. But is that something down the track that you want to do once the restrictions ease a little bit more?
Absolutely. I hope so much that, you know, I can't wait to get back on stage. When I staged this show last year, it was at the Butterfly Club in Melbourne, which is a fantastic little venue. I absolutely loved performing there. But I would really love to do a kind of turbocharged version of the show, with, you know, a full band, backup vocalists and lights, and just really spend the time, not in a festival setting and not in a little cabaret setting, but in a really big kind of music setting, and just being with each other, feeling the audience, feeling the other musicians. It's something that I'm really missing right now. So yeah, hopefully that is down the track.
Now, prior to this pandemic, obviously we had probably about 2 or 3 months of freedom, of course, with no restrictions. Did you do any live performances at the start of this year?
It feels like a really long time ago, and I'm trying to think back. I think I was doing a couple of little singer-songwriter gigs, out and about in Melbourne. But the thing I was spending my most time on was actually, I was musical directing a production at the time, a musical. So that was taking up a lot of my time, and unfortunately, that's kind of been shelved as well. But you know, still exercising my musical brain as much as I could before the lockdown.
Have you done any virtual performances now we're
I
since then?
I actually haven't. I have been working on a lot of demos in my downtime, and I've posted a few on my social medias. But mostly I've been, actually the thing that has been taking the bulk of my time in lockdown is my honors thesis. So I'm still studying, and that's I'm doing a popular music thesis. So that's been, you know, also another musical venture for me as well. And I've been also learning bass guitar, as you can see on
Ah,
my wall.
yes, I can see that.
um, it's a slow process, and so yeah, so I haven't been able to do any virtual gigs, but I've still been kind of exercising my musicianship in various ways.
Now, let's talk a bit about your music journey. You mentioned that you're a cabaret artist. Tell us, how did that all come about?
It's funny because I didn't really consider myself a cabaret artist till kind of, yeah, a little bit later in my sort of musical journey. I've loved music ever since I was a kid. I remember being, you know, 5 years old, and I wanted nothing more than to be like Delta Goodrem or Missy Higgins, like singing and playing the piano. And so I started that. And then when I was in high school, I got really into musical theatre, and I was like, I want to be, you know, the next Lucy Durack up on stage. And but I was also kind of torn, because part of me, I was like, oh, I still love pop music, I still love singer-songwriter, and I kind of was struggling to find my niche a little bit. And then I started seeing cabaret, you know, going to Fringe Festival and things like that. And I was so struck by this theatrical yet really intimate form of storytelling, and it was something that I was really, I was like, I could do that. And so I was just like, stuff it, I'm gonna give it a shot, while I was still at uni. And yeah, it's become one of my favorite forms of storytelling, and so I've sort of stuck with it.
And what will be some highlights throughout your music journey so far?
Well, as I said last year, I did the cabaret that this EP is based on, Therapy, at the Butterfly Club for their Melbourne Cabaret Fringe Festival, which was absolutely such an amazing experience, and it was just fantastic. I also did I did my bachelor's at Monash Uni, and when I was there, I got to study in New York at New York University for a summer program, which was also another highlight. It was just amazing. Yeah. And yeah, the main highlight for me, actually less of a career highlight, but more of just a life highlight, is finally kind of becoming part of a community and being surrounded by people with similar ambitions and passions to you. That was quite an extremely enlightening experience for me, and something I'm really, really grateful for.
Before about going over to New York to the Big Apple.
Yes.
Now, obviously, New York is famous for its Broadway musical and cabarets. When you were over there, and you mentioned briefly just a moment ago about it, did you go to see any cabaret or Broadway musical? And was there one that sticks out to you to maybe inspire you to do more of this?
I saw, I would say, upwards of 10 shows in that time. It was such an amazing experience. I was literally, every night I was free, I was like, gotta go to the theatre, like gotta go see a show. And that's something that I love to do pre-pandemic as well in Melbourne, as much as I could. I was always going to see theatre. And so yeah, I think my favorite show that I saw when I was over there, which has since had a very successful Melbourne season, was Come From Away. And again, it was this sort of song cycle, very like personal storytelling that really struck me. And I saw that show and I thought, oh, wow, I really hope one day I can write something that is so so inspiring and heartfelt. It really made me sorry, my cat is literally biting my hand. It made me reevaluate my ambitions as a songwriter. Let's put it that way. Stop.
Now, what does the music scene mean to you now?
Well, it's like I said before, it means more than anything a sense of community, and something that I'm really missing right now that we're all stuck at home. I remember starting my bachelor's, and I kind of looked around the room and thought, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I belong. And I never really felt that so strongly before. So I think that, and that extends to the whole Melbourne music scene, because it's so awesome. We live in such a cultural hub, and I think that I really almost took it for granted until it was taken away. And so I'm hoping, and I'm really believe that we'll come back stronger on the other side, and be there for each other, be really keen to go to each other's gigs, to each other's shows, and just soak it up, because we've missed it a lot. I know I'm not the only one.
Now, I'm sure you've had a chance to sort of sit down and sort of set some goals that you want to reach in the music scene. Is there a short and long-term goals now that you've had a chance to reflect on it?
I started out this year with quite a lot of goals, and a lot of them have been sort of changed in the time since then. But I'm one of those people who's just like hungry for knowledge and hungry for experience. So I want to do anything and everything. I want to release more music, and I want to do more gigs, and I want to music direct, and I want to compose, and I want to do session music, and just everything. And so I feel so lucky to be in an industry that is so creatively fulfilling and so fantastically diverse in its opportunities. So yeah, I'm down for anything.
Now, what will be your advice to our viewers and listeners out there who are stuck at home and trying to figure out what they want to do? Maybe music is the thing to go at the moment. What would be your advice to get people involved in the music industry?
My advice would be, always be willing to keep learning. There is always something new for you to learn. to go to shows and gigs as much as you can and support the arts that are still here after the pandemic. And I also firmly believe that music is for everyone. So, you know, if you're however old and you've gone, I've always wanted to learn to sing, or I've always wanted to learn an instrument, like maybe now's the time to do it. Don't count yourself out just because you've never considered yourself, you know, a musical person. I think music is for everyone. That's my teacher side coming out, I think.
Now, of course, let's finish off with a couple of lighthearted questions as well, which is any embarrassing moments on stage?
My ultimate embarrassing moment happened when I was 8 years old. It was my school talent show. No, it's really affected me for the rest of my life. That's why I always tell this story. I was 8 years old. It was my school talent show. It was the final round. So I've gotten all the way to the big auditorium with the whole school there. And I was singing the classic pop song Breakaway by Kelly Clarkson, which was, It was 2005. It was huge at the time. Yes. And so I was doing really well. I got to the second verse and I just completely blanked on the words. Oh, no. And so instead of running off crying like, oh, goodbye, kitty. Instead of running off crying like most 8-year-olds would, I just said, stop. We have to stop the performance. And I stood there, walked over to the piano, very calmly looked at the sheet music, was like, okay, that's the words, walked back to my mark on stage, told the accompanist she could go, and I finished the song. So ultimately, you know, it wasn't that bad. You know, I managed to recover, but to this day, I'm going over lyrics almost compulsively until the second I'm on stage because I'm so scared that I'm going to forget them again. It really has affected me for the rest of my life.
Well, I think you've answered my next question about forgetting lyrics, so I'm going to move on to the next one, which is, do you have a pre-performance or pre-gig superstition or ritual that you go through?
I think that's what I said. I'm always looking over my lyrics. Like I remember when I was doing my shows at the Butterfly Club and, you know, this is a show that I wrote. I wrote all the music except I think one song at the end that was a cover. So all these songs had come out of my own brain. I wrote the book to the script. And even then I was like, nope, I got to check because I'm going to forget. And I even on opening night, I managed to flub a few things. But the audience were luckily very supportive. But yeah, that's just my thing. I don't know what happens. They fly out of my brain, even when they've come out of my brain in the first place. So yeah, my superstition is looking over my lyrics.
Now, when you introduce yourselves to live performances in front of your amazing fans here in Melbourne, is there any time when you introduce yourself that you actually forgot where you're performing and you actually say a different venue to where you're actually performing?
I haven't done that. That would be, you know, very awkward. So I'm lucky to say I haven't done that and I will try not to next time I'm at a wonderful Melbourne venue.
And of course I have to ask, now you mentioned a couple of the artists when you got involved in the industry that inspired you. Is there one particular one out of the ones that you mentioned that inspires you to carry on with your music journey? And have you ever met them?
Even though I think the music we write is really different, Missy Higgins is my absolute number one. I've loved her since I was a little kid, and I've never met her, sadly, but I've been to see her live a few times, and it's just been incredible. And hopefully one day I do get to meet her, and I get to tell her that, you know, your music changed my life. I could go on all day about Missy Higgins. I absolutely love her music. So I think her honesty and her commitment to beautiful melodies set to beautiful accompaniment and just authenticity, it makes me think that there's still room for that in the world, and it inspires me to this day. So yeah, that's my answer to that one.
And one last one for everyone that should follow you on the socials as well as through the music channels. How can I go about following you?
Yes, so I am at _Ashton Turner on Instagram and Ashton Turner Music on Facebook, and you can find my my EP on Spotify, and Apple Music and wherever else you stream, but those are probably the main two under Ashton Turner. The EP is called Therapy. It has a little yellow cover art, so that's how you know you'll find it.
Well, Ashton, thank you so much for reaching out to do this interview with us. We're very privileged to have you on the show, and can't wait to hopefully get to meet you in person and hopefully meet you and hear your amazing music live performing, and looking forward to see how it all goes once we all get out of this lockdown.
Oh, me too. I hope that all of those things happen. It's just such a weird time right now. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
No worries. And that's Ashton Turner there. Of course, you can, as she mentioned, you can download her music, of course, EP of Therapy. Of course, we'll put all the details on our social media this week, so everyone can have a listen to and obviously download her music. There's more on the Smash Evening Show right after this. Don't go away here on Lockdown Tuesday.